Somewhere in your driveway, between the stones of your garden bed, or along the foundation of your house, a plant is growing right now. You have probably already pulled it out this week, maybe even this morning. According to published nutritional analyses, this plant is one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can find in North America. It grows without irrigation, without fertilizer, without any care. It costs nothing. And in 2009, a laboratory study from a research institute in India showed that its extract inhibited the growth of human breast cancer cells in the petri dish across both standard test models. Nobody told you, but someone taught you to hate it. This is the story of lamb's quarters. And it is at the same time the story of how one industry decided what is allowed to grow in your garden and what is not. In the next few minutes, you will find out why this single plant fed humanity across 4 continents for over 10,000 years, and how it vanished from our collective memory in less than a single century. You will understand who profits from the fact that you do not know what is growing on your own property, and you will see that this was not an accident. By the end of this video, when you walk into your garden and see this plant, and you will see it, you will never look at it the same way again. The story begins on the Ozark Plateau, around 6,500 years before the Common Era. Archaeologists uncover storage pits, clay-lined chambers where seeds were carefully dried and separated, stored alongside squash and sunflower. The seeds are smaller than 2 millimeters, and there are tens of thousands of them. It is lamb's quarters. Scientifically, Chenopodium berlandieri. By 1700 BC, those same seeds appear in storage pits across Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, and Missouri. What archaeologists now call the Eastern Agricultural Complex was the first independent center of plant domestication in eastern North America, and it predated the arrival of maize from Mexico by roughly 2,000 years. What indigenous peoples achieved through at least 3,000 years of selective breeding was remarkable. They reduced the thickness of the seed coat to below 20 micrometers, thin enough to germinate immediately, soft enough to be ground into flour. That is the textbook definition of domestication, without a written language, without draft animals, without metal tools. The same plant genus was domesticated independently on other continents at roughly the same time. In the Andes, it became quinoa. In Mesoamerica, huazontle. In Europe, people ate the wild form, from the Mediterranean coast to the Baltic Sea. Roman legions depended on it during long campaigns far from home. Viking crews crossed the North Sea with supplies of its dried seeds stored below deck. Pliny the Elder documented it among the plants consumed across the ancient world. For 10,000 years, this plant fed the human species across 4 continents. So let's talk numbers. Real numbers from published nutritional analyses. Lamb's quarters contains up to 309 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh leaves. Spinach comes in at around 99 milligrams. That is more than 3 times as much. Vitamin C levels reported in peer-reviewed studies reach up to 155 milligrams per 100 grams, well above most commercial greens. Iron content exceeds that of spinach and cabbage in multiple studies, and the protein content places it in a range comparable to legumes. In 2014, Jennifer DeNoia published a study in Preventing Chronic Disease on behalf of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. She assessed 47 fruits and vegetables for nutrient density per calorie, using 17 key nutrients. Watercress scored 100, spinach scored 86.43, kale scored 49.07. Lamb's quarters was not on the list, not because it would score lower, but because the CDC only catalogs commercially traded plants. A plant that cannot be sold is not measured. In 2009, Menka Hubchandani and her team from the Department of Chemistry at Dialbag Educational Institute in Agra, India, published a study in the peer-reviewed journal Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity. They tested different extracts from the leaves of Chenopodium album against 2 human breast cancer cell lines in the laboratory. MCF7, the estrogen-dependent line that has served as the standard model for hormone-positive breast cancer research since the 1970s, and MDAMB468, the model used for the more aggressive triple-negative subtype. The methanolic extract showed cytotoxic activity against both cell lines. The researchers concluded that the plant warranted further investigation as a potential anti-cancer agent. This study has been cited multiple times in the scientific literature since its publication. No major Western pharmaceutical company has funded clinical follow-up research. The reason is structural. A plant that grows everywhere cannot be patented. No patent means no market. No market means no research incentive. Now, how do you find it? Look in untreated garden beds, at the edges of woodland, or along the borders of organically managed fields. The leaves are diamond-shaped, light green on top. The underside is dusted with a fine white powder that brushes off between your fingers. This powder, called farina, is the most reliable identification feature. It distinguishes lamb's quarters from every similar-looking plant. The young plant rarely grows taller than a meter. The young leaves are prepared like spinach. Blanch for 2 minutes, drain, sauté in olive oil with garlic. The flavor is milder than spinach, slightly sweet with no bitterness. The seeds, harvested in late summer, can be ground into flour or used like quinoa, which is, botanically speaking, no coincidence at all. In India, the plant is known as bathwa and folded into flatbreads. In Mexico, quilites are scrambled with eggs. In China, it is stir-fried with ginger. Every culture that lived alongside it found a way to eat it. Ours is the first to spray it with poison instead. In 1950, 2 brothers cutting peat near Silkeborg, Denmark, found a body in the bog. A man lying on his side, a noose still around his neck. The police arrived, then an archaeologist, then Copenhagen. What they had found was 2,400 years old, preserved so completely that the stubble of his beard was still visible. His name, given by the village nearest to where he was discovered, the Tolland Man. Scientists analyzed the contents of his stomach, a porridge made primarily from barley with flax and pale persicaria, along with traces of several wild plants, among them lamb's quarters, consumed 12 to 24 hours before his death. In 1947, 3 years before that discovery, the Scott's Company in Marysville, Ohio, began marketing a herbicide built around a new active ingredient, 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, known as 2,4-D. Developed by American chemists during the 1940s, the compound found its civilian market after the war ended. Scott sold it to homeowners as a selective broadleaf herbicide. It killed dandelions, plantain, clover, and lamb's quarters. The grass survived. Dandelions, clover, plantain, and lamb's quarters were rebranded as threats to the ideal American yard. They were no longer plants, they were enemies. By the late 1950s, 2,4-D was the most widely used herbicide on American residential properties. By the 1960s, homeowners associations across the country were writing bylaws that prohibited specific plants by name. Lamb's quarters appeared on those lists. In tens of thousands of American neighborhoods, it is to this day legally prohibited to allow this plant to grow on property you own and pay taxes on. What cannot be patented will not be promoted. What is not promoted disappears from memory. What disappears from memory is declared a threat. And what is declared a threat is eliminated. At the Museum Silkeborg in Denmark, the head of the Tolland Man stands behind glass. The body could not be fully preserved during conservation efforts in the 1950s, but the face is intact, with eyelashes still visible. He ate a porridge that contained lamb's quarters 2,400 years ago as his last meal. The same plant grows along the railway line outside the museum. It is growing in your driveway right now. We did not lose lamb's quarters. We decided to poison it instead of eat it. Go outside today. Look under the leaves. The answer is already growing there. And now you know.